when did you find your own singing voice? I mean, when did you start to become comfortable? Was it during the Wicked Lester or Kiss, early Kiss, or later on in Kiss?
Wicked Lester, I was a puppy. I was a pup. I had no sense of style, and I had no sense of identity as a singer. With the first Kiss albums, I certainly had an identifiable voice, although it wasn't necessarily where I wanted it to be. Over time, I figured out some technique and worked on things, and certainly in the 80s and the 90s, there was how should I put it, a fascination with hitting notes that perhaps would have been better off not hit.
Okay.
When you find you can do something, you may try to do it. If you find you can jump a certain distance, you may try to jump further. So I certainly found myself trying to do things because they were out of reach previously. So a lot of the singing in the 80s and the 90s was built on suddenly finding an upper range that I didn't have earlier. So I enjoyed the ability to do that, although I don't necessarily think it needed to be done as often as it was. I liked, I liked some of that more in moderation, but I was kind of like, at one point, a kid in a candy store. I suddenly had the freedom to eat whatever I wanted to, and in this case, I had the freedom to sing in anything I wanted to. So, but I think that there's some really good stuff through the 80s and 90s.
Do you have any specific tracks that you're thinking of with those high notes?
Oh my God! I mean, I hit notes, on certain songs. I'll Fight Hell to Hold You on Asylum, or Tears Are Falling, Heaven's on Fire. Well, a lot of songs, and a lot of those songs, some of the lesser ones were really just kind of like exercises in seeing what I was capable of doing.
My Way and Get All You Can Take.
Yeah.
So when you listen back to those tracks today, do you think like, that's a weird kind of style?
I don't think it's weird. I think most people and most singers who hear it go, wow, that's pretty damn high.
Yeah.
So, and I thought the same thing, but it was fascinating to be able to do that. So, and then with time, I kind of started two things. Your voice doesn't stay like that any more than the great hockey players, football players, basketball players. You can't do certain things forever. It just doesn't. You lose that ability. For example, as far as the singing that I'm talking about, I can only think of one or two people who can still do that, who are either of my generation or the slightly earlier than mine. So.
And who is that?
Let's see. Well, Paul Rogers never really. Paul's voice is pretty much pristine, but he's never been somebody who belted in that upper register. But
Geddy Lee,
no,
bass player.
Geddy's always. I mean, Geddy's Geddy's voice isn't the same as it was. It just that just happens. But
Glenn Hughes.
Glenn.
Yeah.
Glenn's the the exception to the rule. Glenn just still can do it. I don't know anybody else who can. That's one in, if you count all the greats and say who still sounds the same as they did, Glenn.
During the elder era, you used your falsetto voice quite a bit. Was that because you couldn't hit those high notes yet at that point, or was it,
earlier on, a high note you had to be hit in falsetto, but then if you learn a technique where you're putting your voice in, as they call it, the mask, you're putting it in the front of your face, which is kind of a visual, but it's something that you have to understand as a singer. Then you can go into an upper register. It's like a trap door that opens up. But if somebody's singing falsetto, it's usually because they can't do it full voice. Once I could do it full voice, it was lots of fun.
Yeah.
So
how do you or did you usually lay down a vocal track? Was it because I heard that you actually did like Detroit Rock City in one take, or did you used to?
I could literally sing for 4 or 5 hours a song over and over and over again until I got it the way I wanted it. Rarely were there punch-ins or anything like that. I knew what I was going for, and my voice would endure. So I would just sing over and over again. And it could be a first take, but rarely were things weren't pieced together. Those songs were more about the purity and the urgency of singing them as opposed to looking at them under a microscope.
But has there ever been any song that has been more difficult for you to get right in the studio? Do you have any specifics of any tracks that's been more difficult than others to get right?
I think a few of the tracks on Destroyer took a bit of effort because I was still finding my voice. So they took a little bit more work, a little bit more time. Although once again they were me singing into a microphone, not some sort of auto tuning or any of that kind of stuff. It's real singing.
And on your first solo album, I would say that you tried to your voice changed a bit for that solo album. Do you agree? Did you try another way to express yourself vocally?
I think certainly on my solo album, a lot of the songs were close to me in that they were. Some of them were more personal and more autobiographical, and there was a certain passion and a certain angst, a certain emotion in some of those songs. Tonight You Belong to Me, it's one of those tracks that really made for chest thumping. So those songs had a lot of meaning to me. So I think the singing had a lot of meaning. Because
there's a real urgency in Tonight You Belong to Me.
Yeah. And there was those songs I related to in perhaps a different way, because a lot of the stuff that was on that album, I was basically just living that stuff at the time.
Mm. And another thing.